Hello, and welcome to episode 8 of Friends from Film School. I'm Luke Pilgrim.
And I'm Brad Kennedy.
And I'm Ellis Treese.
All right, today we're going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff. But first, I watched some episodes. I went down a rabbit hole on YouTube yesterday of Actors on Actors, the roundtable stuff with the actors, and mostly a bunch of Shia LaBeouf videos. But
Shia LaBeouf fanboying.
Shia LaBeouf? I actually do. I'm not going to lie. I'm a Shia LaBeouf fan. I didn't used to feel that way so much, but saw him on Hot Ones. Thought he was funny.
Yep.
But after seeing Honey Boy, I like that dude a lot now. I don't know. I can relate to like the story of like growing up, like as a kid and being on stage and stuff when I was growing up playing music and everything. I can kind of relate to what he went through a little bit, but also just I feel like you can just kind of connect with him more now that you know why he's sort of messed up.
He's super down to earth from what it seemed like on Hot Ones. Like he's not your typical Hollywood star.
Yeah, and you know all those weird things he did with the art installations and everything.
Yeah,
it all makes sense.
Just do it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense when you see like
exactly
what he went through as a child.
I had that same thought when I saw Honey Boy.
Yeah,
it was like kind of explaining everything that made Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, and that stuff sticks with you, man. Like weird stuff happened to him at a young age. And so anyways, I'm a fan of the dude now, and let's see if we can get him on the podcast. Anyways, he all these behind the scenes things were cool because he talked about how they made the movie. Obviously it's autobiographical, and he wrote most of those things while he was in rehab. Are you good, dude?
Just like karate chopped.
I know. I was trying to continue, but
please keep going.
All right. So,
you were trying to be so subtle with it.
I know.
It wasn't working.
It wasn't working.
Oh my gosh.
I was super distracted.
I was too.
All right. So he's in like rehab, and he wrote all these things as part of the exercises for court ordered rehab or whatever. And that was really kind of how the script started. And he really just sent out that script to his friend, who was the director. I forget her name. But she had only done like documentaries, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she did an awesome job. Like I feel like it's directed really well, especially though the edit is awesome because he wrote it more linearly, kind of how it happened. And she edited it that way, and then it didn't feel right. So she went back in, and she's the one that kind of came up with the ideas to cut it up and to create that whole intro sequence, all that stuff. And she said it felt like it was more truthful because of how the story came to her was this way. Like, like she knew Shia now as an adult, and through his stories of what happened to him, she like learned his journey. Yeah. And so that's how she decided to approach the edit.
I was about to say, not to spoil the movie for the audience who hasn't seen it, but that's the one thing I really loved about it was that it kind of takes his childhood and then him in rehab, and it's like drawing parallels between both of those. So that's crazy to know that wasn't there in the script. Like
the shots of him being like pulled backwards on the wires. I'm sure they meant to parallel them, but they were probably separated by a bunch of space originally of him as a kid and him as an adult on the they're supposed to look like the Transformers set or something. But in the edit, it's great because it's really almost back to back. It's like you see him as an adult on this big set, being on the wires, being yanked backwards,
and then as a kid,
it gets a pie in the face and gets yanked backwards right after it. It's really cool parallels.
So I haven't seen this movie, but like, did they use actual like behind the scenes footage from?
No,
or is it all just
it's
all
not
recreated?
It's not even his name. It's like a fake character.
Oh, okay.
But it's like the kid from A Quiet Place plays young Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
And he's really good.
Yeah,
and he's British. I didn't even know he had a British accent.
Oh, for real?
Yes, and it's like he's a great actor because on the interviews his accent is so thick, and I had no idea.
Yeah. That blows my mind when you find out that the actor has like an accent,
like the guy from House. I had no idea, dude. I watched an interview with him one time.
Hugh Laurie.
Yeah.
That's funny because on his new show, Avenue 5 or whatever it's called, he goes back and forth between accents because he's playing a captain of the ship, so he has to like
is he trying to make him...
It spoils the story, but like sorry everyone, spoiler alert, but he has to keep the accent up for the crew and everything, but then he'll break and because he's actually British, but he's pretending to be American to be the captain of the ship.
That's cool.
Anyways, but back to Honey Boy. I thought this was really cool. This is interesting. I'm not sure. It's a different style of filmmaking for sure, but the way they went about shooting it was really raw, organic, really natural. They didn't want to have actions and cuts and stuff. Whoa. They would just start rolling. They didn't really give the actors cues. They could just sort of play around and get into the space and then go. They would light the whole room, and then so they'd have some panels, and then the person, like the DP, would light up the room and everything, and then they'd be outside with a like a remote control wireless thing, so they could dim the lights as needed in real time. Like if they're walking through the scene, they can adjust the lighting. And he said he didn't know if he was gonna like sit on the bed and do the monologue or walk in the bathroom. You know what I mean? So it was like completely open to do whatever he wanted to do.
That's really weird, but kind of cool. Like,
yeah, it's interesting.
That kind of reminds me of what was it, American Hustle?
Yeah.
It's going to sound like it rhymes. David O. Russell, his whole style is like, just run and gun, get it in the action,
natural
light, and that's such a different style of filmmaking, I guess, to what we do. To what a lot of other movies do as well. So,
and I mean, I could see doing that. It's like it's definitely more character driven, actor driven. It's like you're giving the actor space to get into that place instead of, shooting like a montage or whatever it is, shooting something where it's not requiring as much time to kind of get in that zone, or like those sort of staged like Spielberg type shots, the big push-ins, and I feel like those are more visually driven films.
I think there's almost like two different trains of thought for filmmaking. It's either camera does most of the like movement or something, or the actors. It's like camera driven or actor driven.
Then you got to have a really good camera op and DP and like focus puller, because they don't know what they're gonna do.
Was the camera op just like following behind them like the whole shot, just kind of like
walked? They
just like trailing them.
I don't think they even rehearsed. They'd go in there, they'd sit down. They only did 1 or 2 takes. They filmed the whole movie in 19 days.
Oh man,
wow,
that's hard.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. But he talked about like meeting the kid for the first time, the actor, which I knew his name, Jonah or something like that. But he taught
the one from,
Noah. Maybe it's Noah.
Place.
Yeah. It's kind of a biblical name.
I think it's Noah.
Yeah. So he talked about meeting him for the first time, and he met his dad first, and then he was like, where's your kid? And he was like, he's out there, and he looks out the window, and the kid's pacing and running lines. And so he said that like resonated with him. He could connect to that. Like that was him when he was a kid, like he knew this kid was like grinding, like doing the work, and like, not just like a lot of kids who might be coddled or whatever, or they're just kind of like waiting for their audition. And he goes out there, and he talked about how they just started like running lines, just sitting out on his truck and everything. And they were supposed to like film the audition. So then like the director, she just came outside, and she just like used her phone and kind of walked into a scene they were already doing and started filming. It sounded like everything was really organic and stuff, it was really cool sounding.
That also sounds super chaotic for like the crew.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Like that sounds so stressful.
If you interviewed the crew, they're probably like,
they probably have a completely different
that was terrible
experience.
Yeah.
They're like, good thing it was only 19 days.
Yeah.
That kid's name, by the way, is Noah. It's Noah Jupe or Jupe? Jupe.
But he said he asked him, like, he was like, well, he needed to make sure he didn't know, he was like, if this kid was right for the role, because the kid's dad seemed really, grounded and like a good dad and everything. He was like, he's from London. He's like, how's this kid going to relate to me? He's from London. He's not like, he hasn't had anything, the type of background he's had. Of course, he is a kid actor. And then he was like, well, he just had to see if the kid like wanted to impress him, like if he wanted to, if he wanted his approval, if he liked, because he said when he was a kid, that's all he wanted from his dad was like him to like him. He wanted his approval. So like he took his hat and he like put it on the kid's head during the audition, and he saw the kid's eyes kind of like well up or like light up or something. He said, and he was like, that's when he knew, he was like, all right, that he thinks this will work. So it was cool. It was cool hearing like that whole process, because obviously we don't get to see a lot of that actor's side of things, and that's a movie written by an actor, and of course, so the whole process is very actor driven and very focused on getting the actors in the right headspace and I think that's something that even we have to keep working on all the time, like figuring out how to help the actors get there when we're on a schedule, you know, because it's their job to forget about the schedule and just get in the zone.
Be in the moment.
Another one he mentioned was he worked with, I think it was Lars von Trier. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard. He said he literally had this girl sit down. The scene was for her to walk into this other room and start doing the scene, but he wanted her to sit down in this room next to it and watch an entire movie. And the crew's sitting here waiting. She watches a whole movie to get in.
Like hour and a half, 2 hour movie.
Dude, he said a full movie. He said literally a whole movie, and to get in this like zone, and then she like stands up and like walks out, and then they're just rolling. Like when she walks into the next room, that's how they got into the scene.
That is so stressful. Like,
what do you think about that?
What's the crew like? What are they doing,
dude? It takes a ton of patience.
They're getting paid to eat crafty.
They're
dude.
sitting there.
Dude, wonder what movie he had her watch. Something really artsy. I mean, I imagine.
I wonder, right? I wonder what he like. I don't know. I wish I knew what the scene even was, but he just said he saw that and thought it was just so crazy, but also this awesome way of creating a space for the actor.
I was about to say, I imagine Shia LaBeouf probably loved it.
Oh yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like,
sorry.
Is that like on paper that sounds really cool, but then you're like thinking of the practical side of all it.
I'm thinking about like wasting all this time and money for like an hour and a half, but you know,
well,
if you got
they got the money to burn. And what's just weird is like, I guess they had to keep tabs on the movie because the DP needed to know when it was about to be over so he could just be ready to go as soon as she walks out. But I don't know, that just seems really stressful because there's like no organization. And AD would be freaking out, I think, on set. He'd be like, what is going on with this?
They probably
like,
caught the AD on his day off or something. They're like, hey, you can take the afternoon off.
Yeah, it probably has somebody that works with him all the time and understands that process, and then they plan their schedule accordingly, you know.
Be funny if like the producer's like, I really like this style of filmmaking. And he's like, I'm going to do the rest of my movies like kind of like
every shot.
And the AD's just like, oh,
the shot,
no.
it just takes like years to make a movie because they have to watch a whole movie before each scene. Well, it was interesting hearing all these actors talk about their process and how much prep goes into it. A ton of prep, maybe months of prep, maybe years. To learn that character, to like really feel like that you become that person, and then you get on set, and sometimes it's like all out the window. Mm-hmm. Sometimes like everything you worked on, it doesn't apply all of a sudden for some reason. Like Tom Hanks had a story about how for Captain Phillips, there was all these great lines in the script about him looking through the porthole, and he was like, I could just picture these scenes with the eyes and just like really just like looking out the window at the ocean or whatever it is, these porthole scenes. Mm-hmm. He gets on set, there's no porthole. So he's like, all of a sudden, all these visions he had in his mind are gone, and he's got to adjust, and
that's sort of like an actor's job, though, is to sort of kind of adjust to like the scene and be in the moment, like, and just work with what you got, I guess.
Yeah, and probably thinking from like the director's perspective, they were probably like really gunning for having that porthole, and then it's like the production designer, whoever, was like, we didn't get it. We can't afford that. We got you the sub without it.
They print off a piece of paper with a porthole on it and just stick it there.
That's what like Robert De Niro asked him. He was like, could they not put in a porthole? It was funny because they kept coming back to that story.
Man. That's just seems kind of like a nightmare. And even for like the editing and stuff for
you're talking about like watching a whole movie and then
but then after that, like just editing all of those scenes with like no structure behind them just sounds so difficult. Because you're like, I guess we kind of do that now.
I was about
but
to
it's
say,
like on like
it's
like on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
Because you're just having to go through and find all the like good moments instead of like the script is like, oh, this part was good right here. This take was good.
Like we never have hardly any notes from script. I mean from set, Like it's mostly just watching back and seeing what was good.
Yeah.
But like for Honey Boy, that director coming from a documentary background, she was used to making a story from thousands of hours of footage. So I think probably it worked great for her, and she They filmed
Probably the right person for the job.
Oh yeah, totally. And they just filmed it in such a raw, like real way, and it's wild, man, to picture them just kind of like launching into a scene and you don't call action, whatever, you know.
I just want, like, how do you know when the guy? I guess you would know on Video Village that he's rolling, but it's just weird because he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna go now, and then just starts recording.
I would imagine it's similar to how we film docu promos. You know, you kind of see something that is exciting or something gets, you know, be like, oh, we gotta capture this, and then it's like you just hit record, and then you're following it along until like, you know, you kind of get that feeling. Okay, now it's time to cut.
It's just on a bigger scale with more pieces though, but it's like you have more crew, so it's like, when do they know when to be quiet? Like, when do they stop
They're
talking?
quiet all the time.
When do they stop moving around, like moving like C-stands and stuff?
Yeah.
I feel like it was probably like they knew the scene was going. Like they were like, once I most likely it's like once those guys are like those actors are on set, then they're like, oh, okay, we're you know what I mean? They're probably lighting it, getting ready to go. But once they get them out there on the set, they're probably rolling. Because if they filmed a movie in 19 days, they didn't mess around. They were like, all right,
I bet
this is what
I bet it's a relatively small crew too.
He said it was so small. They were like, because on the actors on actors thing, he was like, our crew. He was like, there's more people in this room for the show than we had for our crew. They only had like 6 people on like camera or whatever, you know, like running camera, doing all that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, and then
Believe it.
Yeah, so it's a great movie. You should definitely watch it.
Yeah, that Peanut Butter Falcon's really good too. I feel like last year Shia LaBeouf had like a really awesome kind of return to form year.
He said he's not interested in like science fiction and stuff, so I guess we can't work with him. But no, I'm just kidding. But he said
Did he say that?
He did. He said he said he's just not interested in like plot-based movies. He's interested in like people-driven, character-driven. You know,
like emotional.
He wants to make a movie about people instead of like movies about plot.
That's
and
fair.
he's like studio movies are always about plot. You know?
Yeah.
So
he does seem like the type of guy who's like probably going to be in indie movies for now on. You know, it's like,
but then he'll probably surprise us one day and do like an Iron Man type thing.
Oh,
you know
like
what I mean?
Robert Pattinson now doing Batman.
Yeah,
it's like I feel like they probably have a lot in common where you know, they started in these kind of blockbuster movie franchises, and then they're like, man, I hate this, you know, I want to get away from it as far
go more artsy.
Yeah, more artsy, work with, you know, people who aren't inside the Hollywood system or even thinking that way. And then, you know, now, you know, Robert Pattinson's doing Batman, so it's like that's almost like the full pendulum swing from Twilight to Batman.
I don't blame him though. Like, I don't think I'd ever want to work in the blockbuster like realm, I guess. Yeah, and like doing all of that, because it's like such a different atmosphere than like indie film. I like what we do now.
So if we're directing the next Avengers movie, you're like, I'm out.
I'm out.
I'm out, dude.
Nah, but it's just a different type of atmosphere and environment. There's like a whole level of stress and stuff, and you're not really in control. There's like a lot of other people that are in control.
Boards and committees.
Yeah,
and stuff
people
like
who
that.
have the money that are kind of dictating how your movie's going to be.
Yeah, even though with Honey Boy they had a little bit of stuff, you know, there's always hoops to jump through because he talked about.
Did Amazon fund that one? I know it's
like an Amazon
film,
thing. Yeah, but the funding, they may have bought it or something, but the funding came from like this lady, like they knew somehow, like they reached out to her, and she was literally like backing the whole project or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah, and so he you know, Mel Gibson was a big part of that, putting it together.
Really?
Yeah,
Did not know that.
he was like, you know, he reached out to Mel, like he sent him the script, and he wanted him to play his dad originally.
I feel like I had to hear that.
Well, to get his dad to sign off on it, he lied and told him that Mel Gibson was going to play him, and he was like,
his dad's like, yeah, man.
Yeah, his dad's like, oh hell yeah, man, Braveheart. Yeah, I'm gonna be Braveheart. But Mel was like, I don't want to play it, but I'm supportive. You know, I'll support it. I'll help you out. You know, however, and he said, you know, Mel Gibson was kind of almost someone for him to look up to a little bit, someone who had totally messed up their career, had totally done stuff that was seemingly unforgivable in Hollywood and everything, and yet just a couple years ago he's at the, what was it? He's like, accepting the award on stage, and for like Hacksaw Ridge or whatever, because and he's seemingly kind of forgiven, even though he said so many racist remarks or whatever these different things are, and like messed up his career. So he said that was sort of like something for him to look to be like, you give it enough time and you can, and if you, I guess, have remorse for like what you've done, you can be forgiven in the public and in Hollywood's eye and everything like that. So anyways, Mel Gibson, I guess, helped him kind of secure some of the funding and everything as well, and now they're doing a new movie together. I forget what the movie was about though, but I saw that.
Like both Shia LaBeouf and Mel Gibson?
Yeah, they're in like some new movie together.
I wanted to talk about post-production.
Yeah, okay.
We can talk about just kind of the process of like how to make an edit good.
Yeah.
We were talking about that earlier. Yeah.
What makes a good edit?
Yeah, what makes a good edit?
And I almost feel like we could tie it back into the Honey Boy thing, right?
Yeah,
because
100%.
It's like, that movie, like you said, had an edit, and then it's like it
linear.
wasn't working. You know, so it's like, how do you approach it from a new way, or how, I don't know. Like
that's interesting too, because like she watched a linear edit and then decided, I'm just gonna literally play a mashup here. I'm just gonna move pieces around.
That's how Annie Hall was made.
Oh really?
Yeah, they filmed it like in a linear fashion, and then somewhere in the edit they were like, this isn't really working, so they like restructured it that way. Won an Oscar for it. So
yeah, that's where you play jazz, as Shia LaBeouf says. That's where she gets to play jazz.
I mean, but I think editing, and we've talked about this, a lot, is editing's almost like that unsung hero of film where,
oh wow, yeah.
It looks like,
was that profound?
Looks like,
whoa.
yeah.
Whoa, whoa,
but it's
whoa, dude, whoa.
It's like where really the movie is made, right?
Yeah.
It's like I guess the old adage is like, you write a script and that's one form of the movie, then you get on set and you film it and it's different than what you wrote, but it's still another form, and then in the edit it's a completely new thing altogether. But it's like you can mess up an edit so easily,
ruin a movie,
or you can make something that was sort of mediocre really good.
Like a performance that wasn't so good. You can make it great.
You can make it awesome,
or you can ruin some actor's performance as well.
Yes. You're like, I didn't really like that actor. I'm gonna make this terrible.
And that ties it back to the actor's perspective as well. They all talked about that, how it's because they asked some questions like, have you ever been, gone to the director or to the editing room or whatever and been like, I know that take 3 was my best on that one or something. And most of them were like, no, like that's not my job. They were like, I don't want to think about that because then I'm getting in my head. That's someone else's job.
To say,
and you cannot. There's no way for you to accurately know what you look and sound like. You know what I mean? You think that was the best take, but really you need someone. Yeah, you need someone else to tell you to pick that take for you.
And even then, like even in our experience, it's like maybe take 3 was the best emotionally, but maybe they didn't do the right movement to connect it from the previous clip where you're cutting on the action of someone moving their hand.
It was out of focus.
Or out of focus
Lots
or
of things.
something. There's all these little variables, and that's what I was going to bring up too. It's like with editing, there's so much that you're kind of having to like keep a check on or think about, and a lot of times, like if you've done it for long enough, I know we're all kind of to this point where it's like you're almost working on autopilot, where you're not thinking about the focus, or you're not thinking about it, where you're like, okay, I gotta watch this to this point, and then it's like, well, maybe if I removed a couple of frames toward the end or towards the beginning, or if I cut here, or it's like combining stuff that you never would think, especially in our docu promos, you're like actions that they were filmed days apart or, completely different times. And you're like, these almost work perfectly in a match cut or, connecting the movement. It's just like, I think that's one of my favorite things of like taking the project and you're like, wow, like this is really cool because it's like nothing before it wasn't planned, but then you almost find like this magical moment where it's like, even if it's dialogue, or not dialogue, but it's like people in the docu promo and they're like looking up, and then it cuts to like another person making and connecting the eye contact, but it's from a completely different scene, and then you're moving to a different scene altogether because of it. And it's just like, you know, that's one of my favorite things, is like you almost can connect stuff in a way that never, you know, would have been connected without the magic of film, right?
It's such a good feeling too when you when an edit starts to click, you're like, that's the best feeling. And then you can show someone, and they're just like, and then they can confirm, you know, they're like, dude, that's an awesome
Especially
edit.
when they like point stuff out specifically that you're like think no one would notice. It's like such a small detail, and then they're like, I like how you did that. You're like, oh yes,
Yeah.
They notice the match cut or whatever.
Yeah. And even just like let's bring it to encounters. You know, what we're preparing, the premiere is April 3rd, you know.
Get your tickets now.
Yeah. Night of the Movies is coming up.
SozoBearFilms.com. You can buy your tickets today.
But that was a quick little blurb trying to promote. But you know, we're preparing the movie, and it's like just all the sound design. You know, it's like,
oh, it's so good.
We had the edit, and then it's like you really took it upon yourself, Luke, to really tackle, you know, all the sound design, really add that. And it's like once you add that and the tip music, it took like an edit that was working, you know, we could feel it and knew that it was pretty solid. But then it's like once you add that extra layer too, it's like, okay, this is feeling like an actual movie, like, you know.
I'll admit that it was like kind of almost boring before the sound design and the music was in, because like the scenes felt really like
Too
long, drawn out. And then once the music was in there to build tension in certain spots, it really like made the movie like come to life.
Right.
It's so good.
Yeah, it definitely comes to life.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the crazy thing too, is just like there's so much to editing that I think people don't fully get. You know, like our process is, you know, you go through all the footage, and then you're kind of figuring out parts that work, and then you add that in, form the edit from it. Then you're adding like narration, sound, the lines, if it's a narrative video, and then you're like having to then go back over it, visual effects. You know, there's just like so many parts that it's like it can be a long and daunting process. And it's really like sculpting, right? Where it just, you have a bunch of stuff, and then you're having to like narrow down to the best parts and then reshape it into something really cool.
Yeah, right now the movie's like pretty solid, and I'm really excited to see it once it finally comes together. But like all those little things, I think a lot of people miss whenever they make a movie. Not to like bash on anyone's movie, because it's a lot of work to make one, but you know, there's a lot of small things like sound design, making sure your impacts like hit, like even making sure that like certain sounds are hitting at a certain decibel range, and like nothing's kind of like competing with the other, and everything's kind of working together, and not like nothing's fighting each other, so that you have a movie that flows. And like colors like super important, because if it's like washed out, I think that it'll take you out of like the movie itself.
Yeah. If people don't color correct their like log raw footage,
it's just washed out, and
it's
it
like
looks
grayed out.
It looks bland.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with sound design. If you don't have good sound design, or like it's just super quiet except for room tone and like dialogue, then it's like really
even it's even worse if there's no room tone. Like I watched one of the ones that was submitted to A Night of the Movies. Is like they had their, you know, their lines of dialogue were up, but they had cut all the noise out around it. Probably because it was a noisy take, you know, or the whole thing. They didn't. I don't think they had great audio, but they should have put some room tone in or something, because it would just, you could hear kind of a when they were talking, then it just cuts out to nothing, literally just silence. And I'm like, this is so unnatural, because there's not even the sounds of like, you know, like the people moving, just clothing, whatever.
You got to have all those little sounds. Like the smallest sounds make such a big difference in like your movie.
The other day, like Brad and I were recording the sounds of a wheelchair in the office here, just rolling. Like he was, you know, he had the mic kind of close to the floor, and I'm like in the chair, and you can barely even hear this of the wheels put them in the edit though, and it brings that scene to life. I mean, it feels like she's rolling in a wheelchair. You can actually hear the sound she makes, because there's no way you're going to capture that on set, because for one, your sound guy's focused on getting good clean audio
of the actors talking.
I mean,
right?
yeah, I'm sorry, good clean dialogue is what I meant to say. Not hearing like tiny little sounds.
That's a Foley artist's job.
Yeah.
And that's our job.
Well, yeah, we have all the jobs.
Yes, we do have all the jobs.
Oh, I was going to mention, I remember the first film festival I went to. You were talking about like log footage and being like grayed out. And I remember the first film festival I went to and thinking, is this what independent movies are supposed to look like?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like the style. And then I realized later it's just a lot of people weren't color correcting their footage.
Yeah, because they were told like you should shoot in log, you should shoot like this raw profile because you can control it in post or whatever, but they didn't know.
They never do.
They don't have the experience to do that.
They didn't. Yeah, it's like if you don't know how to do it, just shoot it with like a preset color profile, and then at least it has some color to it in your edit. If you're not going to color correct, if you're definitely going to color grade it, then shoot it that way. You know.
And that's more than just throwing a LUT on your footage, because that doesn't.
No,
that's not color grading.
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
So don't shoot log unless you're going to color grade it for real and color correct it. That's the moral of the story here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the movie overall is looking really good, and I think that a lot of it came from your edits looking solid.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I can't wait for people to see it.
Yeah. I think that's another cool thing is like finally watching a movie, that you've worked months and a year on or more, and then finally watching it with an audience.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. When it's on the big screen, at the Holly, it's good. It's so awesome.
There's such a like buzz in the air, people are excited to be there anyways, but then just your movie starts to play. I remember like when we screened our first movie, The Apology Service, for an audience, and just being like, all of a sudden my chest felt like almost like butterflies, and I was like, whoa, I didn't expect to have this feeling. But it was great.
Especially with that movie, we had shown a few people, before.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had the same experience where it's like just that energy, and you're like, I hope they like it.
Yeah, you want people to like it,
laughing at the parts. You want them to laugh, cry at the parts.
Yeah. Yeah. I sent the edit to Har'el, and he said he thinks it's our best work to date. But of course, it's the first project that he's produced, so maybe that's why he thinks that. But
I still think it's the best project we've done to date, so I agree with that.
It's better than being told you regressed.
Yeah. I was just
not your best.
It's better than hearing like, I have a bunch of notes.
Yeah.
Here's what I think we should change.
Talking about The Apology Service, is it crazy to you, Luke, that like come November, that's 5 years old? Like that project was released. It's like around this time now we were in pre-production for that movie, and like.
Oh yeah, and we shot it in May, right?
And shot it in May. And it's, beginning of March now. So,
that is crazy, man.
It's just wild to think like 5 years has already gone past.
Time flies.
Mm-hmm.
When you're having fun.
When you're having fun, guys. So have fun, everyone. Do what you love. Love what you do.
Dude, the worst part about like having your film premiere though at some festivals is like whenever the audio or like the projector like changes like your like color or like overexposes it on like your footage, so that like everything is just like blown out, or like the audio is not hitting right because they don't have like surround sound, and it's just that's a really bad feeling.
Even the level's just not loud enough in the room, that kills it.
Yes, man.
But so much of the color, man, I don't think we've ever been to a film festival where it looked right. It's always slightly weird because whatever projector they have. I remember when we were getting ready for The Apology Service, Brad and I went to the school where we were going to premiere it, and we just spent forever
we spent probably a couple of days.
Yeah,
right?
just with a remote control on that projector, trying to change settings to see if we could get it to look closer, because he looked gray, like his face looked gray. It was just weird because, especially for that movie, that's a very saturated movie. The colors are super saturated.
Didn't we get them to buy a new bulb for the?
I think so. I think they replaced the bulb. They probably thought we were so extra for these students who are like demanding things.
Dude, we're always extra in everything.
We're like, excuse me, this doesn't look like my art. I need you to fix it, please.
Dude, it's the
Some
worst.
poor dude's like, okay, I'll change the bulb.
Yeah, because we've been to festivals before where our movie was just completely overexposed, and I was like, man, I can't tell what's happening because everything's just blown out now.
Yeah.
But then you're like, you can tell too when the audience still reacts, and you're like, okay, it's like maybe it wasn't presented the perfect way that we know we had made it, but
it
it's
still
like
works.
it works.
Yeah. And the other worst part about a lot of these festivals will be that they have terrible Q&A, and they don't have any chairs for you. You have to stand up there. It's super awkward because it feels like we don't really have time to do this. So let's just really quickly tell them your name and whatever.
Yep.
They'll have just sort of
and
like
a volunteer.
Tell
us what movie you made and your favorite part.
Yeah, and I always compare it to like class the first day where you're just like, let's go around
So
the room,
awkward.
tell everyone
Fun
your
fact.
name and one fun fact about yourself, and we've only been to a couple where they had really great Q&A. They
Film
had some,
festivals need plants in the audience to ask cool questions.
Oh yeah, we should do that for a night of
that
movies.
or it's like have a really good moderator.
Yeah, just have a moderator who asks the questions, and so
Dude,
hopefully this year we'll have good questions when we moderate our event.
The worst part is like at a Q&A whenever the movies are over and 2/3 of the audience are like, all right, we're out.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you see everyone leave and you're like, cool, I'll talk to these chairs. Thanks.
Yeah.
No, or it's like my family, who's
yeah.
already
it's just them.
They've seen the movie before at other festivals, and then they're like, I don't know what question to ask now. Yeah.
That was like when I went to Dragon Con. One, I was the editor or like a visual effects artist, a small part. And like, it was just me there. And then like,
Did you do the Q&A?
Yeah. Everyone except for like 7 people were still in the room. And I was like, nobody wants to talk to me. I'm not the director of this movie.
Did they ask you any questions?
They asked me about the intro to the movie. That was about it.
Oh, like us doing the miniatures?
Well, hey,
Yeah,
at least you worked on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I worked on that.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was really funny. Dude, I was watching a Corridor video and they were working with this guy who worked on The Revenant.
Yeah.
And he was talking about like his time with Leo on The Revenant. And apparently like this is a thing that they do on blockbuster films. They all have one wheels.
What's that?
The one wheel is like those hoverboards, except it's 2 platforms and there's a big wheel in between the platform.
Yeah, okay,
and you have to balance or whatever and you can go forward.
Yeah.
And like everyone on set was like riding them. And
Wait, why do they have them? Just because?
just to have them.
Oh, okay.
And this is on every blockbuster.
No, but they're the people on like
Hey, this is coming from Mr. Ellis, who speaks in absolutes.
There's like the grip and lighting team had like some one wheels, and so this guy was the like a focus puller. He worked in camera, and he was riding his one wheel around during set, and then like as soon as they wrapped, Leo like turned around and was like, I want to ride that. And like walked over to him and was like, like, can I ride your one wheel? And like he had like video footage of like them like holding Leo's arm while he was like riding this like one wheel. They're like, why didn't you ask us during shooting? He's like, I couldn't, man. The insurance company wouldn't let me ride it while we were filming. And I thought that was so cool.
What if he like broke his arm?
Yeah.
While doing it.
So it's like they restricted him from doing stuff like that until he was done filming.
Oh wow.
Which was really.
But
cool
yeah, for that
thing I
movie,
didn't
they
think
put him
about.
in like freezing.
They're throwing him around in like some like
the
woods.
That was another actors on actors I watched was with Brad Pitt and Adam Sandler, and they talked about like stuntmen and everything.
Yeah,
they were like talking about how those are the coolest guys on set always, and they'd be like, whenever even like Adam Sandler when he's making jokes and stuff, or if it's a comedy movie, he's like, he knows like if the stunt guys are kind of laughing at it, he's like, all right, cool, this is working, because those are like the coolest dudes on set. And Brad Pitt talked about how he just has no pride in like letting them do their job. He's like, I don't want to do these stunts, he's like, they're
so
great
he's
at
not
it.
Tom Cruise.
He's not Tom Cruise. Yeah, he's not like, I'm gonna jump off a building and break my ankle and shut down production for like 6 months or weeks or whatever. He was like, I'm totally cool with them doing their job because they're great at it.
Yeah, dude, I watched some behind the scenes of Tom Cruise when it was Mission Impossible, I think, when he jumps out of the that like cargo plane, right?
Yeah. Wait, yeah,
no,
like
that was maybe The Mummy.
there was that. Now there was Mission
it was a new
Impossible.
one.
He's climbing on the outside of a plane, and remember that
I
one?
thought it was a helicopter.
No, there was an airplane where he's on the wheels. Remember, he's like hanging on the bottom of the wheels of that airplane as it takes off. Did you ever see that one?
No,
Oh,
not that
I
I know
do
of.
remember that.
Yeah, he's hanging on the wheels
Yeah.
like as it takes off.
Was that like for real?
Yeah, he really did that.
Oh.
I mean, he's like harnessed in, I guess, but still, he's hanging off a plane.
No, I watched this one where I think it was like one of the new Mission Impossibles where he like jumps out of a cargo plane and he has like this like full like suit with like this like glass mask or whatever. But it was really cool because like he just kept jumping out and like skydiving or whatever, and there was just a whole camera team that jumped out with him that was like recording him like actually like do this.
Those poor camera operators, man. Can you imagine
He's
falling?
got a 50-pound camera and he's like falling like
So,
10,000 feet with this camera.
I guess obviously that thing is secured to him. He's probably secured to another guy who's going to control the shoot, and that
I wonder
way,
how much like they're paying in insurance for all.
Dude,
for
that was my first thought too. I was like, dude, the insurance on this has to be insane for all these
like,
people to jump
the
out.
camera is super expensive. You have probably one of the biggest stars of
Ever.
Hollywood or all time, yeah. And then like all these crew members too. Like
Yeah.
so unnecessary.
It was like that Matrix one too that we saw for the new Matrix where they're like jumping off of that roof. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
dude, the insurance on this has to be absurd because they're actually out there just jumping off of buildings.
Would you rather shoot it? Would you rather shoot it practically, or would you rather do it in post?
Ooh, oh man. Maybe I'd at least like to try once to shoot it practically, just to have like, our movies really haven't had too many stunts,
Yeah.
if any.
I think I'd want it more practically just because controlling the lighting and stuff would be like, or to get everything to look right would be so hard. I
mean,
think.
of course, it depends on what it is.
But to me, I feel like if they're jumping off the rooftop, you could easily do that in a soundstage, like because you just you have a green screen, you have the top of the roof building, they jump. You could shoot that. You could cut that into like a wide shot where it looks like it. You know what I mean? You just you create the rest of it on the bottom. But I think I prefer shooting stuff practically just because I like to be in control like of what I'm seeing on screen instead of
leaving it up to Ellis.
Right.
Thank you.
There's a gamble though in post if it's going to work, and you've already shot it with the actor, and you'd have to reshoot it or something if it's not going to work the way you shot it, thinking because we've ran into problems before where we shot something like green screen stuff or whatever, and we're like, oh, this is trickier than we imagined.
What's the biggest problem we've ran into on a project, a previous one that we had to fix in post?
Well, the green screen stuff was
the green screen was super hard, but
what about the screens like on Holler, where we just didn't really plan for? We knew
the only problem with that was because it was so dark in those corners because we shot it really dark that there was no data to pull for like the track. So it was like there was like 5 or 6 frames I had to hand track,
and that's
just
the
move
tough
the points
thing
around.
Because it's like when you're using technology to track something, it's trying to like correct me if I'm incorrect. But it's using like the contrasting of the colors or in the space.
It's like the pixels, so it's like taking different like hex code values and like pixel color data and like looking. That's how like it stays on a point, is it stays on those
pixels.
Yeah, those pixels. So since it was so dark, everything was kind of the same color. So like the screen was just breaking or whatever, and I was like, oh. And so I had to hand track it.
Tough.
Yeah.
Very tough.
That was like just hard, but I don't think it was the hardest. Green screen's definitely the most annoying.
Yeah. Making the broom the other day turned out to be harder than we thought.
Anything with green screen's super annoying.
Yeah, you can check that out. We did a video where everyone was talking about the brooms would stand up on their own, so we kind of made our own parody of that where we said the broom would sweep on its own. We thought we could shoot this in a day and be done real easy. We did do it in a day, but it took all day. And we had Brad in a green screen suit. Yeah, let's show him a picture here. Boop. He's in a green screen suit. We had to make it where his hands didn't cover the handle of the broom, so that was tough.
Man, that was so hard to hold that.
He's sweeping the broom like no one in history has ever tried to sweep a broom. because
barely holding it.
Yeah, we put a little piece of tape on the back. He holds the tape, and then he just kind of, with a couple of fingers, holds the top of the broom. So it was just not natural. It was really hard to do.
But
and
he
then,
still did cover a portion of
Exactly,
the broom. And
yeah.
so it's like, it looks like a shark took a
Thanks.
bite out of it or
right,
something.
Yeah.
exactly.
If you really pay attention.
in post, it's like we could see it was like impossible for him to not cover a little bit of the top of the broom. So we could take him out pretty easily, his body, because in the green screen suit, and we had a plate on the back. Behind it, on the layer
A
under
plate's
it.
just shooting like the
blank.
scene with nothing happening in it, so that you can use it to like replace the background where we take Brad out.
Mm-hmm. And we could remove him fairly easily, but the where it was making contact with the object was the difficulty.
Yeah, because it looks like someone just bit the broom and just took some chunks out.
Yeah.
Let me explain this too. I was on like vacation or some sort of trip, and I came back and they're like, "Hey, we want to buy this green screen suit, and you're the only one who can fit in it."
You're gonna wear it.
So
We're like, yeah, you're gonna wear it.
That's you now.
so it became my thing.
Now you're a superhero.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
very weird being in that type of suit because it's like blocking your eyes. Like you can still see out of it, but it's like everything's green and your field of vision's very like short. It's also very strange because the zipper's only in the back, so it's like it's really
Because he's like, "Hey, could you zip me up?"
yeah, it just,
And I'm like, "Okay."
it's really emasculating.
We're like, here we've gone to a new level of our friendship, and that's not even the only time I've had to do that. It's like when you were in the alien suit, had to zip you up then, had to zip up Juan when he was an alien.
You just mastered it.
Man, those the alien suits too. The alien head, man, you can't see out that thing. It's so tough.
How about when you were in the alien head for the new one, Ellis?
That's like wearing like 5 pounds and it's like really like hot in there.
It's a huge mask.
Yes.
It sits on your shoulders, basically. Well,
Oh.
it's huge, and you can't. I just remember you were like, take it off, and you're completely drenched.
Dude, I couldn't breathe in that
You were
thing, man.
so sweaty.
I was like,
Well, didn't you have like an allergic reaction or something? Or
yeah, that was that too. But
That
like,
first time we tried it, your face was kind of breaking out.
yeah,
And then we were like, put it on again.
yes, that's exactly what happened. I was like, I'll just keep taking, keep putting this on until I get used
I was
to
like,
it.
this is called exposure therapy. We do this enough, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I almost passed out on set from wearing that thing, dude.
oh,
We were like so behind, so I didn't want to say anything, but like I couldn't breathe, and I was like,
Dude, it had to be just like a swamp in there.
Dude, it
because
was terrible.
When you took it off, I could feel the heat just radiating out of it. And we're in the old jail we've talked about before, and it's like 20 degrees. So
Yes.
the fact that
it
you
was
were
freezing.
the fact that you were like baking in there, it must have been really hot
Dude,
because it was so cold in the room.
the CO2, I probably was just breathing all of the CO2 that like I was
Oh, that
breathing
you're
out,
exhaling?
and I was just like, like about to pass out. I'm like having to like go to the little hole in the mask and be like,
I'm trying to breathe out the nose hole.
yes. Oh
Crazy.
man, that thing was terrible. And then it was like covered in slime and stuff too, and so I
Yeah.
couldn't like take it off without getting my hands coated
Yeah.
in this like nasty like slime.
Yeah.
what an experience!
Movie magic.
Yes, you'll see it in Encounters.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else in your notes there, Ellis?
Yeah, I mean it's something that's not really film related, but I wanted to go on a small rant.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so I went to the gym this weekend.
Is
right?
this something that grinds your gears?
It does grind my gears.
New segment.
Okay, so I went to the gym this weekend, right?
Yes.
And
I saw you post that picture. You're
Yes.
like getting some gains.
yeah,
I thought you were doing like the pushing up the arm.
no, I wasn't doing that.
He's that guy now.
But I went to the gym and I was like, all right, I'm gonna just like get this workout in. Won't take me more than an hour. And I managed to do like 4 exercises with 3 sets in each one. And there was one guy who was on this machine I wanted, and he was sitting there.
Can I take a guess real quick?
Yes.
So he's probably on his phone this whole time.
Yes.
Okay.
And like he's like full like man spread on this machine, like on his phone. and I am having to like work around doing this exercise because he's just on it, and he's on his phone, and he did not do a single set of this exercise, and I did 4 exercises.
Oh my gosh.
And like he just kept being on his phone and didn't do anything. I was like, dude, I need you to move.
Dude, he's a real gorilla, man. That's his gym.
Dude, he was huge. So like I
That
couldn't
was a
go up and be
Shia
like, can you leave? Like, can you get off of this machine? So I just got.
You should have challenged him to a fight. You're like, I'll fight you for this machine.
He would have beat me. I was straight up. I don't understand how people can be so like huge, but be on their phone the whole time and just not do an exercise. It's like they sit on the machine and they get bigger. I don't get it.
They've probably been at the gym all day.
Like
steroids.
maybe.
Yeah,
But,
maybe steroids.
Yeah, it could be steroids. It was so annoying though, and I was like, man, I just had to go like do another exercise and just not do that.
You
machine.
leave, go to a different gym.
Anyways, that was my rant.
You know what
I was
grinds?
so mad.
I have something that grinds my gears. Have you ever been around someone whose facial expression doesn't match what they're feeling?
Yes.
Man.
What they're feeling? Or
Yeah. It's like they don't realize that they're making the faces that
like
they're making.
they feel, or it looks like they're having the worst time ever, but they don't mind.
They're fine. But
Yeah.
it looks like they're totally like pissed or something. I can't. It's hard to communicate with someone like that.
Yeah, they could be like totally like pissed off looking, and they're like fine. They're just
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
And
And you'll be like, is something wrong? And they're like, no, what? Why? And
They're
I'm
like, no?
Well, tell your face to catch up with your emotions, please.
yes, dude, that's so annoying. Brad, do you have anything that grinds your gears?
I
about-
mean, what?
How about the sounds of scraping ice?
That doesn't bother me.
Dude,
That's not a huge thing for me.
it doesn't grind my gears, I guess, but it hurts my ears.
If we were gonna have a sound that hurts my ears, it's when people rub a blanket on a bed, like they're trying to like smooth it out.
What?
Dude, you've told me this before. That's
Yes.
the weirdest thing.
No, it's not, dude.
Wait,
it's
is it like anything like rubbing fabric?
it's annoying, but
So
like
if I'm
it's a
making
bed
my bed-
specifically. When someone's like rubbing it, I'm like,
So I'm
I have
making
to
my
leave.
bed and I'm like trying to make it, look presentable, not, crazy or anything.
I can't even think
So
about it
do
without
you-
like,
This
Okay,
goes-
here's a question.
cringing.
Do you make your bed?
yeah,
this goes.
but I don't like smooth it out.
You're like,
dude. Hey, this is a childhood trauma that you had, where your mom told you to make your bed, right? And then you didn't, and then she came in there and she was like, "Ellis, you're in trouble," and she starts wiping the bed. You're crying in the corner.
Every
Now
time I
you-
make the bed now, I'm getting these like PTSD flashbacks
Yeah.
and stuff, and I'm like,
for real.
oh,
no, dude, that sounds the worst. I can't stand it.
that's funny.
Nails on a chalkboard,
Hey.
totally fine.
Now,
Go ahead.
speaking of stuff that like freaks me out though, like anything with teeth, anyone talking about like dental stuff, like breaking a tooth, chipping a tooth, that like
That's the one
just
thing I
gives
can't
me
watch
pain.
on film is like nails and teeth. Like it's people doing stuff that like with that in horror movies and stuff.
Yeah.
If it has to do with your nail or like teeth, I'm out.
Oh, I started watching that new show, Hunters. You know?
Yeah.
And there's some teeth stuff in it, man. With
Okay.
with a bowling ball.
I'm out.
Okay.
Straight
Yeah,
out.
that like
That hurt
Just
me just thinking about it.
right?
Yep.
yeah, and I mean it's just because like I know for me, having to get braces, I have like one half of this tooth is like fake because
Yeah.
of an accident in second grade, so it's like anything. I'm still like paranoid because when I went to get the filling or whatever, the replacement tooth, there was an older lady there and she's like, yeah, mine fell out, chewing gum. And I was like, wait, I'm going to be like, she was probably like 70 or something, and I was like, so I'm going to get this, and then like randomly in my old age I forget I have
Your tooth fall out.
and then it's
Just-
going to
it's
fall
gone.
out.
Dude, how bad did braces suck?
Braces were the worst.
Well,
Man.
so I'd be paranoid because when they were taking mine off, I'm like telling them, "Hey, this is a half of a fake tooth.
Be careful with that one."
And they're like, just grabbing it out.
Dude, because they're like glued on, and I just remember that. I haven't
so
thought about
painful.
this in years, but the pain of like when they tighten them.
them?
Yes.
Oh,
The
man.
tightening, and then the
You can't eat, dude. You can't you can barely talk, man. Because like if you touch your tooth, it just sends a shockwave of pain like
Yeah.
throughout your body.
did you ever, Did you ever have rubber bands?
Yeah, I was about
Yes.
to bring that up. So the hooks for my rubber bands, I remember one time it like got caught on the inside of my cheek, and I'm like stuck like this, and I ran downstairs. I'm like, mom, and like trying to talk, and she's like, what? I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good.
Man, I had to have like some kind of corrective thing in there, and it was kind of up in the top of my mouth, and it pushed down on my tongue, and it caused the worst sore like in my mouth, and it hurt so bad, and I couldn't hardly chew or eat anything, and so me and my friend John, we tried to grind up a cheeseburger, and I was gonna like drink it. Oh man. So I put a cheeseburger in the blender.
So gross.
Dude,
gross.
and I didn't realize like that it doesn't taste good that way.
Yeah, I learned the same thing getting my wisdom teeth taken out. I asked my mom to grind up chicken tenders, and she reluctantly did it, and I think she knew it was going to be terrible, but I think that was just pure love. Thank you, Mom. I know you're listening.
Yeah, you can't grind up food like that.
It's so gross.
It has to be. That
I
has
couldn't
to
imagine
happen.
a cheeseburger. That sounds weird.
Oh, dude, and it was like I think all the bread, the meat, all
Like,
mustard and ketchup.
I was about to say onions.
I was making like a protein shake.
So gross.
It was an old school protein
So
shake.
gross.
Oh, it was bad.
Oh, you know my brother had braces twice.
Really?
Yeah.
I probably could use them again, honestly.
He's an overachiever.
But it's because he had a tooth that was like up in his gum line, like an extra one,
Like a
up
shark?
here. I guess.
Just got another
like
one
a
growing
shark.
out.
So they had to remove that, and he was like in first or second grade. Gave him braces, and then he got him out in like fourth or fifth, and then the middle school had him again.
Wow.
Dude, the second I got my braces off, they're like, all right, you have to wear this retainer for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. And I
know.
just
I
like,
wear my retainer.
I threw it away.
I lost mine or something. My dog
Yeah.
chewed mine up at one point
For real?
too. Yeah.
Yeah, I just got rid of mine. I was like, not wearing that.
I'm probably
Done
like
with
the
that pain.
only person that still wears a
Yeah.
retainer.
Yeah.
That's so on brand for you, Brad, to still wear your retainer.
Yes.
That's so on brand.
I was like,
For you.
day one, done.
And that's so on brand for you too. But but Brad was like, they were like, listen, you have to do this. Brad was like, I'll do it forever.
Well,
He's like,
Is this a rule? Because if it's a rule, I'm going to follow it.
I will say, I was really bad at grinding my teeth too. So there's a part that like raises, like the top part, so I can't like fully bite down. So it helps me, that so I don't grind my teeth.
So you sleep in them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
You wear them like when you eat?
I don't go home and I'm like, well, I'm home from work.
I guess it's time to put in the old retainer. Sit here all day.
But I remember living in the dorms and people like it would reach 11:30. I'd put them in, ready to go to bed. But I might still hang out with some friends in the common area, and they're like, I can't understand a single thing you're saying. Why do you suddenly have a lisp? And I'm like, it's my retainer.
Dude, did I ever tell you the retainer story with my sister? How
No.
she tortured me as a kid? Well, like,
Did she put her retainer
Speaking
in
of-
your mouth?
no,
Childhood
that'd be
traumas.
weird. But I was like, as you know, I have an active imagination, and I would get really scared of things.
Yeah.
And I still do. Like, we watch scary stuff, and we could talk about the video game night we just had. But Carly, for some reason, I was like, either she was in my room or I was in her room, and we were just both like, it was like dark, and I think we were like just like chilling out, laying in the bed talking or something, and she apparently had her retainer in. I didn't know though, but like I could see it sort of in the dark, and I was like, Carly, I didn't know you had braces. And all of a sudden she goes, I'm not Carly. And dude, I just like, my parents heard it across the house. I just, I'm screaming, so terrified. But like, how mean is she to her little brother? She's just, I'm not Carly. She did that voice exactly. Man,
That's
she was so
hilarious.
mean. And dude, I just remembered this too the other night. Guys, I was dying laughing trying to tell Carrie this story of when I was a kid. My parents, we had some company over. My parents told me to go upstairs and turn off like all the lights. I had left them on or something, but I was scared of like, a ghost or something. I don't know. I was spooked. And you know how at my parents' house, it's like there's a top floor where there's kind of like a, what would you call that? It's like a hallway, but it's
Overlook
open. Yeah, it's like
sort of thing.
so I'm like, because I'm scared, the entire time. Full speed, full volume. I'm running, and I just at the top. I guess it would keep me safe if I screamed the whole way. And we've got like company
like,
here.
oh, not messing
so
with that
it's
kid.
yeah, it's, exactly. So it's me just running full speed, and I'm turning off the lights, and I run across the hall, and I turn off those lights, and I run down the stairs, and I'm screaming the entire time.
gosh.
And I get down to get down the stairs, and my parents just go, "What the hell is wrong with you?" It was so funny. Dude.
I think that's one way that me and you were alike. Is I mean, I wasn't yelling and screaming, but I think we both had very big imaginations and overreact or overthink things just way too much.
I played horror games as kids. I think I got desensitized from like.
Dude, I guess so.
I'll tell you this. I remember in 5th grade, and I came into my classroom and there were these other teachers there, and they were like, I was like, "Where's Miss Bradley? You know, she's not here." And they didn't say, "Hey, we're doing this test." Like, they weren't honest at all. So apparently what was going on was it was this test. They brought in some special people, teach half a day, and, you know, kind of do a fun science experiment or whatever. But they're like, "Yeah, you know, we're your new teachers now." And I just freaked out. I was like, "What? Like, what happened to her? Like,
where's Miss Bradley?"
And she's just like in the office, you know, in the teacher's lounge.
So was this like an experiment?
I have no idea.
They were like messing with you?
I don't know. I don't even know if anyone ever really explained it.
The teacher
later.
probably just wanted a day off. It's like, I need you guys to go watch these kids for a minute. It's like
it wasn't people related to our school or anything like that. Like, it was just like people that showed up. It was probably like
kidnappers. You almost got kidnapped.
Or those like people Stranger Things, like secret agents.
That's what I was just thinking.
Some
too.
Kid, you know, in my classes, you know,
been
lifting pencils with their mind or something. I'm just unaware.
Yeah,
dude. In 6th grade, there was they had this like thing, right, where like if you passed a test or like you did something good, you got to hang out in this room for like a period or whatever, and it was just full of games and like couches and stuff. You just got to skip a class and go to it. So my main motivator, I don't know why this reminded me of that, but my main motivator in school when I was a kid to get really good grades was so I could skip all my classes to go hang out in this room and play games.
That sounds like that has like an inverse effect.
Yeah.
Dude,
because how I would think about it would be like, I'm not doing that because then I would miss a class, and what if it was the most important class of all time?
Dude,
like,
I got like straight A's. Just went to the room all the time, dude. I was like, I'll study at home. It's fine.
That's hilarious.
Dude, it was awesome.
That's a weird... They let you skip class?
Yeah, you got to skip an entire period and go hang out in this room. And then if anyone else from another class...
What if you chose, like... So you're like, okay, 4th period is my math class. I'm skipping that one.
You could just skip that one.
Do you think all the teachers signed off on that? Or some of them were probably...
Oh, some were very hesitant.
Yeah, begrudgingly like... Fine, but they were probably you know how there was some of those teachers who always were difficult, you know, and they a lot of them, man, I had some of these teachers in like middle school who literally thought they were college professors. So they were just bananas, you know. They would be just throwing things.
Yes, dude, my history teacher was insane. But like there was in my English class one day, I remember there was this kid who was sitting in front of me. And like I had one of those like tickets in my pocket or whatever, and it was saving it for my math class. And
so they gave you a ticket.
Yeah, you get a little piece of paper.
You show up to the class and you're like, "Hey, I'm missing this,"
and then you go
the golden ticket.
Yes, but there was this kid sitting in front of me, and I was gonna sit through this English class. And out of nowhere, he just like starts like profusely vomiting like everywhere, and I was like, "I'm out, teacher." I just gave her the ticket and left.
That's awesome.
I was like, dude, it was like just like dripping down the floor, and I was like, no, I'm done for today.
Wow.
That reminded me when you said like crazy middle school teachers. We had an art teacher in middle school, and I remember he was showing us how to draw something. He was like very weird, like hippie sort of guy. He claimed that he had like this alien sculpture in his room that was like worth $1 million, and then
oh wow,
I think some kid accidentally broke it or something, and he really freaked out on him. But he's like showing us this drawing one day, and then suddenly I don't even know how this was brought up, because I doubt any middle schoolers were like even bringing up John Lennon, but he loved the Beatles, and then suddenly he just like went off on a tangent. He's like, man, I hate the SOB who killed John Lennon, and we're all like, what?
You're like, whoa, dude.
calm down, dude.
Can we finish learning about World War II?
He like snapped. And then we were like, what? No one said anything about this. And he's like, oh.
So, I'm sorry. You got a little excited there.
Very strange guy.
That's hilarious. Let's get him on the podcast.
No, he got fired for inappropriate stuff.
Oh,
so
okay.
Definitely not.
All right.
Call him up.
Dude, middle school teachers and like elementary school teachers, I just remember like some of them were like super cool, and then some were kind of like a little weird.
Yeah.
But like I feel like high school, like every teacher you ever had was like super like chill. Except for
wow, what an oversimplification of every high school teacher.
Okay,
ever.
except I had this physics teacher. I was in AP physics, and like this dude was like, you know, like 75, 80 years old or something like that. And like he would always like just have his back to the board, and he's just working out all of these problems on his own, just talking to himself. And he's like, all right, here I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna plonk, put this decimal here.
He did the sound effects?
Yes, he did the sound effects. And like he would always talk to himself, and we're like, we have no idea what we're learning right now. And then one day we came into class, and like he was in his chair, and he would, like just had his eyes closed, and he was like really old, and like just was like, and we were like,
You thought he was dead?
we thought he was dead straight up. And so one of the kids like got a ruler, like poked him a few times. He didn't move. We were like, oh shh. And
Call 911.
yeah, no,
I imagine he's like, oh,
no, he didn't move.
Nosferatu.
And so then like the first reaction, everyone was like, so can we like leave if we're not like learning anything in this class right now? And eventually,
wait,
like,
they think everyone thinks he's dead. And
we,
they're like, hey,
he's not
can we-
moving, and we were
can
like,
leave?
we were like, should we leave? Like, should we call someone? Like, what? And
Wow. The kids, we think he might be dead, so let's see if we can get out of this class.
dude,
Let's
that's
go.
exactly how we thought.
That's the most accurate like thought process of a high schooler.
Oh, yeah, the high schooler.
But like 20 minutes into the class, he's just not moving in his chair, and then he's just like, eyes are open, and we're like, oh,
Dude.
and he just gets up and just goes to the board and starts teaching. Like
He might have been
nothing
a vampire.
happened. We were like, what
You
just
might have
happened?
you might have had a vampire for a teacher.
Oh man, thank you, Mr. Turner.
Yeah, well, there's his name. All right. What do you say we wrap this thing up, guys?
Yeah,
All
I
right.
feel like we could talk forever.
We could talk
about,
for days. All right, cool. Well, hey, thanks for listening, guys. We tune in next time. We'll have some more insane stories from our childhood, I guess. That's the direction we seem to be going.
Buy tickets for a night at the movies.
Yes.
April 3rd. Don't want to miss it. A lot of awesome films will be showcased that night.
Including the premiere of our new movie, Encounters Episode 2. We do have merchandise on our website, sozobearfilms.com. That's also where you can get those tickets. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
See you next time.
See
Bye.
ya.